Isekai anime are probably the most hated genre in the anime community. Every season, there seems to be more garbage isekai added to the trash fire of uninspired shows. I'm here to figure out what makes the difference between a show like ReZero and a show like Reborn as a Vending Machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon. I can tell you one thing, they need to work on a better and catchier name. With premises that are the same, isekai need to do something special to stand out. Anime like ReZero, Mushoku Tensei, and Konosuba have certain characteristics about them that attract people to them like a moth in the presence of a lamp. It's one specific detail that brings these shows to a higher level than generic isekai. But first, let's talk about recent isekai. It's been a little bit since an isekai has been the standout anime of the season, so let's go all the way back to winter 2021, when Mushoku Tensei came out. It came out during a season which should have been all bangers. Sorry, Promised Neverland fans. Despite that though, it was one of the top anime of the season, and would have been #1 in any other season. It did something that no other isekai was doing during that time, and one of the immediate thoughts someone could have is, oh, it's because of the characters. Because many anime do find their uniqueness in dishing out characters that are different from the typical cast you find. Look at Bocchi from Bocchi the Rock, breathing fresh air into slice of life anime with a realistic depiction of crippling social anxiety. Okabe from Steins Gate is a comedic take of a chunibyo infested man in an intense mystery scenario. Denji from Chainsaw Man being a deviant of a puppy who doesn't know how to take orders and finds himself in the most peculiar positions. In that case, anime like the Sword Isekai and the Vending Machine Isekai would have the best shots of succeeding. But let's look at this realistically. The ideas of both of these anime are crazy. I promise you that nobody at the board meetings for greenlighting these anime thought that the characters were some newfound formula that can be replicated for an infinite money glitch. The power they held with their stories was novelty. These characters basically originated from the craziest what-if scenarios. It just so happened that their ideas went to the moon and they're now getting an anime adaptation. The absurdity of these characters is what catches people off guard. It's like how some horror games get their badge of horror by resorting to jump scares and not atmospheric and mood-setting factors. No one trying to make a genuine narrative would try to challenge themselves by making their character inanimate objects. You lose all sense of relatability and common struggle between the reader and the MC. I'm not looking at a microwave with bolts and springs practically falling off of it, and empathizing with the fact that it's breaking apart and the possibility that it could easily be the new inspiration for the next Oppenheimer movie. I won't lie, they're really fun ideas to explore what would happen, but I don't think this leads anywhere on the larger scale of things. Novelty wears off after a while, and you're left with a story that can become repetitive if not enough twists are brought in every so often. And I don't think the Vending Machine Isekai or the Sword Isekai do enough with their ridiculous characters to be at the top of their genre. Their worlds don't provide anything of value to the Isekai or fantasy space. Nothing new is done, and there's no depth to it. One very good example of this is the RPG elements that many of them abide by. I came to watch anime because I want to see extraordinary environments and how the characters interact with them. Meanwhile, in these anime, the MCs are spending too much time min-maxing their fucking gear sets and not enough time touching grass. That's always how they almost die every other episode. The RPG elements of a world take you out of it, or at least they do for me. It doesn't feel right. It feels like a fan-made project or parody rather than an original work. It feels unprofessional. I don't think I need to say any more, but in case you missed the point, it sucks balls. So let's go back to Mushoku Tensei. The MC in this anime is a strange case. For some people, the nature of his actions and personality are the driving force for getting them to drop this show. He is an asshole, a creep, and a bum. There aren't redeeming factors about him when we first meet him, but this anime is leagues better than the other two I've mentioned. Why is that? The answer is world building. I believe world building and design is where most stories should start. Without firm roots to latch onto, the varying branches of a story's plot lines can only go so far without losing the nutrients that are the details and facts guiding the world. This is why in RPG-esque worlds, they are limited by the precedent that is JRPGs and other games like it. It's only in free-flowing and open worlds that stories are able to flourish. In other words, I'd rather listen to a genuine freestyle rap someone poured their heart into than a by-the-book jukebox pop song that will get the NPCs moving at the dance club. Mushoku Tensei does exactly this. As Rudius grows up and experiences the world, we experience it right by him. It isn't a generic setting, and we're immersed in this world that this anime is building up for us. It isn't comparable to other fantasy anime because this is one of the top fantasy settings in the anime space. To back up this spicy hot take, look at the characters in the story. Rudius is pure evil and could be put on the list of sex offenders. Rudius's father cheats on his own wife with their housemaid, showing people who don't continue further than this that this world is filled with scum. What they don't get to see is the development that occurs later down the line. The revelation brought to us when Paul loses all of his family in an accident and is left all alone with one of his children. He has to care for her while looking for his wife and others, who are the reason he is experiencing heartbreak and drowning himself in alcohol because he feels like it was his fault that he can't find the people he finds dearest to him. Other characters like Eris and Ruijerd show growth like this. Eris is very carefree and adventurous during most of the first season, but after certain events, she can't bear the fact that she is the way she is. She ventures out onto a journey with her mentor to get stronger and become someone who can protect the people she finds dear to her. Ruijerd was someone who expected to be hated and despised everywhere he went, but after clearing up misconceptions about himself, he believes he can spread the good word of Spurds anywhere he goes. He holds hope inside his heart where before, he never had anything to keep him going to restore his reputation. The man himself, Rudius, is someone who learns how to care for others and have others care for him. He thinks he needs to do everything himself, but having people who love him makes him remember that people can depend on one another. He cherishes those connections and hopes to keep good relations with everyone he deeply cares for as a companion, friend, or lover, but life rarely ever goes straight down the projected path. Character development is a vital part of an engaging story. Mushoku Tensei does its best to emphasize this fact, but it can't do it out of nowhere. The first step to a good setup of character development is world building. Rudius and his friends wouldn't change the way they did in a generic fantasy world. There'd be no spark to ignite this growth in these characters. The fact that the world exists as it is and the depth to its lore is what makes Mushoku Tensei an interesting world, both for its simple details and its role as the ignition for the maturing of these characters. Everything matters, from the geography of the world to the relations between everyone, including the commoners, the nobles, royalty, travelers, adventurers, and more. I've mentioned before that the world needs to feel like it is breathing. An airtight environment won't do well for a story trying to blossom and flourish. It needs airflow and passion to properly fill itself with life and moving parts. Another example of good world building that mirrors the same good qualities of Mushoku Tensei is ReZero, with another main character who hasn't really done anything of note in his past life and who seems obsessed about this one elf girl. This is probably the biggest trope in the series, with the MC loving elf girls. Why is it always elves? I'm about to sound like a dwarf if I keep going on this tangent. My point is, the main character Subaru isn't special in the slightest. He is a normal dude who just so happens to die a lot. While this gimmick or revival is something that causes Subaru to change and develop as a character, I think there's a bigger picture here that is the root of the growth that Subaru experiences. The world around Subaru is so expansive. It never fails to amaze me how large the world really is. Just like in Mushoku Tensei, the specifics and finishing details they add to every area they visit makes the world so much more lively than it would be in an RPG-esque world. You can feel the world moving at its own pace, while Subaru is stuck at the speed that he's at. He's a normal guy in a very fleshed out fantasy world that has no remorse for whoever walks whatever path. The people who are strong are able to get by with the training that they've done, but those who are weak only have luck to depend on when they get into a sticky situation. Subaru is weak and he hasn't had the time growing up in this world to learn about it. It's like having an introvert being invited to their first mixer party without knowing anyone prior. From his past life where he had set no standards, no goals, no ideals that he wanted to accomplish, he now has to establish those and more because of new connections he makes through this diverse world and the people in it. The wide landscape of individual personalities from different backgrounds makes him think about what he wants from this new chance at life, where before, he was basically rotting away in this room like a mummified husk. He develops both great qualities and poor qualities because of the world around him. He holds lots of trust issues with people around him and isn't always the smartest of the bunch. Subaru doesn't doesn't know what to do all of the time, and many times he does something, he fails to succeed. It's vulnerabilities like this that make the character so appealing to us, despite not being special in the slightest. And the only way for these characters to show such weakness is to build a world that isn't tailored to them specifically. It is its own entity that existed long before the MC appeared in the world, and will last for years to come after the MC is gone. It's the cruelty of a real world that exists despite the story. It's these worlds that viewers will always tend to remember and talk about when reminiscing about great world building. I would end the video there, but I forgot to bring up one series I mentioned, Konosuba. I don't think many people would put Konosuba in the same sphere as Mushoku Tensei and Re:Zero. That's like comparing Daredevil acts with stand-up comedy. They're both meant for entertainment and performance, but they don't fit the same niche. So how does Konosuba fit into the space of great world building? Konosuba is the comedy isekai, which would make sense for the characters to be the main act of the series, letting a unique person be the main character and having them take the show down all kinds of crazy avenues would make for a very memorable story if done right. But that's not what Konosuba is. Konosuba is a world filled with extravagant characters because of the history of the world. One prime example I want to bring up is the lore of the Crimson Demons. They are the otakus of this fantasy world. Take a weeb that wish they had all the powers that are shown in fantasy media. Now give them those actual powers. The crazy shit they get up to is unbelievable. A weeb's dream could lead to, well, only misery and, more misery. Creating a whole history behind the existence of the Crimson Demons and their demented nature gives reason for Megumin to be the way she is. The fact that someone else who was isekai'd came up with them too gives more background on the aspect of being isekai'd. This and other isekai people Kazuma meets establishes how often he should expect to see people like him. Except they all have their own problems. One is a freak, one is a cop in disguise, the other is a giga nerd. The town designs of the world are probably the most generic this show is. The portrayal of an MC that isn't OP and at the beginning is working labor jobs just as he would have been, as a no good for nothing bum in Japan is real. This world, again, isn't tailored to Kazuma, and he needs to bullshit his way past obstacles in order to live comfortably. In all of these anime I've talked about, it may seem like the characters are what makes the show, but they are only this way because they are from the world that the author has established and not from the story that the author is trying to write. Prior to writing anything, a good world should be laid out for the viewers to experience as the characters go through it. Each of the experiences the viewer and the MC go through is new for everyone, and that's what makes Mushoku Tensei, Re:Zero, and Konosuba so special and above the rest. That's what Isekai needs to do. Like if you agree, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I have a Twitter and Discord, but other than that, I'll see you all next time.